My name's Gillian and I'm an alcoholic. A very nervous one. Okay, start at the beginning. Gillian, I was born. I had a brother, obviously my parents. Growing up, I came from a very dysfunctional family. My mom was a chronic alcoholic. My dad drank very heavily, and it was chaos from the get-go. I don't have any real memories of being a little girl. Getting affection from your parents, and it was always, if you did get attention, it was for the wrong reasons, because there was a fight or something got broken, and it carried on like that. Which, needless to say, made me a bit of a liar and a pretender from a very young age as well. Going to school and pretending that everything was okay, because I didn't want people to know that I came from such a horrible place. So I wore masks. I pretended to be okay from a very young age, even when I wasn't. I tried to be a part of groups at school I could never really be a part of, because I wasn't being Gillian. I was pretending to be the person that group wanted me to be, in order to fit in. Anyway, my mom and dad got divorced. My mom remarried, and during that time I was sent off to boarding school, which was my first real taste of absolute, what's the word? Abandonment, if you want to call it that. Somebody was more important than me. Why didn't my mom love me enough to want to keep me around? Other people were always more important than I was. And it sounds like self-pity, and it is self-pity, and it was self-pity, and it kept me drunk for a very long time. Anyway, during that time that I was at boarding school, I remember getting there late. So I was put into the senior dormitory. I was a junior. So I kind of had to make friends with people older than me in a dorm. So that's where I started mixing with older people. And that carried on throughout my school career. My mom's drinking had increased during this time, and she ended up getting divorced from that dude and remarried my dad, which, needless to say, was just absolute chaos from the get-go. Things kind of deteriorated at home, and as most of us alcoholics, well, me specifically, my mom thought if she moved the family to Durban and we started new and we went to school here, everything would be different and it would be okay and we could start all over and it wouldn't be embarrassing because people wouldn't know about all the cuck that went on. Started school here in standard 7 or 8, I think, 7 it was. And yeah, nothing changed. In fact, it just got worse. It was just the same thing in a different place. I struggled to make friends. All the people that I'd grown up with in Pretoria, I at least had known from a young age. I knew nobody. And it was, it was difficult for me to make friends because it's to pretend to be people that you don't know, if that makes sense. Anyway, my mom's drinking progressed, and so too my dad's drinking progressed to the point where they'd pretty much lost everything. My brother and I were going to school every day. Our school fees weren't being paid, and we were being called into the principal's office and asked what was the problem and can your parents come in. And needless to say, that's embarrassing for a young child, especially a teenager. And anyway, they ended up losing everything, and we ended up having to move into a caravan in Queensborough, which was like, only rubbishers live like that. So nobody could really know about that. It was hidden, well hidden from everybody. through the disease of alcoholism, so too did my mom and dad go down, and my dad eventually kind of decided it was enough and tried to commit suicide, and he shot himself and my mom. They both survived. Needless to say, it was big news. It came out, East Coast Radio, wonderful radio station, came out. I didn't know about all of this. It was in the papers. I got dressed and went to school as if it was a normal day the next day, only to be met by, gee whiz, what happened? What happened, really? Pretending. But on the night that happened, I remember we often hear people speak in the rooms of, when did you cross that invisible line? I think at age 17, I can say I crossed that invisible line. I'd always been, I'm not a social person, but when I drank, I became social, and I became funny, and I became a part of the crowd. I became somebody people wanted to be around. And that specific night after the whole shooting, when my mom and dad were in the hospital, my boyfriend at the time took me out and said to me, let's go and have a drink to calm your nerves. And it did. It did. Straight away I felt, hang on, this actually makes me feel better. It kind of takes away that real sore pain. I don't have to pretend. I don't have to do anything. I just, instead of thinking, I can do some drinking. That was the kind of mentality that I took on. My parents moved back to Pretoria at that stage. They went and stayed that side, and I stayed here. I finished schooling, but I didn't go back to school. I was embarrassed, and I didn't want people to judge me by where I'd come from. I just wanted people to think I was cool. And I could never really understand that just being me was okay. As the time progressed, so I met a guy which I eventually did marry, and we had a little girl together. I always drank heavily. I didn't drink all the time, but when I did drink, I made a good job of it, to the point where I'd been given a few warnings by my then husband that, like, seriously, Jill, you need to slow down, you know, what's going on here? I went out the one day after work, I remember it quite clearly, and said I would be home for dinner, and I got home the next morning at 5 o'clock, driving up Fields Hill. I went and had a few drinks with people after work, and that's how my drinking progressed into that sort of blackout stage. And I was pretty much given an ultimatum, either you stop drinking or this is done. And that was my first taste of getting to an AA meeting, which was probably around about 2002, I think. Yeah, around about there. The only reason I went to that meeting was to hold on to something. I quite liked the house I was living in. I loved my husband. I didn't want to lose my child. There wasn't all that much wrong with me, I didn't think. I just drank too much, and I needed somebody to tell me how to drink less. And that's what I thought AA was going to do for me. I went to a couple of meetings. I didn't relate to the people. I didn't understand when they spoke about the 12 steps. I thought it was like steps, literally. You walk this side, go that way, behind, and by the time you've done the 12th one, you don't have to drink so much anymore. And you read it 12 times, and then you're extra well. I really did think that. And, you know, through my own willpower, I didn't drink for an extended period of time. To tell you how long would be a lie, I can't remember. And funny how we ended up getting divorced regardless, because Gillian, without any alcohol in her, wasn't anybody. I didn't know who to be. I didn't know how to act. I didn't know how to be happy. I didn't know how to be sad. I didn't anything. just backtracking a bit as well, just after Jamie and I had gotten married, I got a phone call to tell me that my mum had died. She died on the 17th of July, 1997, and my little girl was born on the 18th of July, 1997. She was born the day after my mum died, which proved to be something that kept me sick for a very long time as well, because, again, I so desperately wanted to feel joy and happiness for my little girl, but I felt guilty because I was supposed to be sad and miserable because my mom had died. And I could never quite find a balance as to how I must be, because I didn't know. I really didn't. And I drank on that for a very long time. Anyway, after Jamie and I got divorced, I'd lost the marriage, but I'd gained drinking time. Every second weekend I'd have off, and my daughter would go off to dad, and I started meeting people and going out and living the life. I didn't have to be a full-time mom, and I didn't have to be a full-time wife. I could eventually just go out and drink and have fun and let my short hair down. And I did. I went out, and 9.5 times out of 10 got completely hammered each and every single time, to the point where I'd be scared to wake up in the morning and open my eyes because I didn't know where I would be or who would be lying next to me. I kind of figured the attention that I was getting from all of these people, if I became this person that was willing to just be with any old person, maybe somebody would love me for that and accept me. And when they didn't, so too my disappointment grew as well, in people like, what am I doing wrong? Why? But it was like Gillian by day and Gillian by night. Gillian by night, if I drank a bit, I could be in a kind of a relationship with you, but wake up the next morning, I don't know what to do, because I didn't know how to live life sober. I didn't know how to give affection. I didn't know how to love anybody. I didn't even know how to love my own daughter. I thought that by giving her things, it would make her understand that I love her. And I understand now that it was because I couldn't even love myself. I had, during that time, such a self-loathing to the point where I eventually didn't go out anymore, because I was starting to make a fool out of myself. You don't go to a bottle store for 2 days in a row and they ask you where you've been, like, really? So I had to start finding it's a mission, driving from Pinetown to Hillcrest, but you go to New Germany to buy wine because you've been to those other 3 in Kloof that week. So, trying to hide the fact that I drank too much. That was all I did. I drank too much. And I started doing it by myself at home, behind closed doors. At least there, nobody would have to see me make a fool out of myself, and I wouldn't have to take my car to get the little dings taken out every now and again, driving into walls and poles. And but that's it's still from there. I did meet somebody and I got into a relationship. We ended up getting engaged. During that time, I'd also been given an ultimatum about the whole drinking thing, and I thought, oh shit, this oak's really going to take care of me for once in my life. I don't have to pay bills. Life's going to be so easy. I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to drink. And I didn't. Also, during that time, I kind of got an inkling as to there being something wrong, and I went and saw a doctor. And I explained to this doctor that, I keep drinking all the time, and I keep overdoing it, and I really don't mean to, but I really don't know how to stop. And I was diagnosed as being bipolar. And and I was actually quite excited because I could now put a name tag on what was wrong with me and why I'd felt this funny way my whole life. And if I took these pills, they would make me feel better, and in turn I wouldn't have to drink. And I didn't drink, but I took pills. And being the alcoholic of my type, if I can take one and it makes me feel numb, I'll take 6 rather than 1, because it's better. And so too my journey into prescription medication became quite prevalent. I didn't drink for a long period of time, probably about 2 or 3 years. I did, however, end up in hospital a couple of times. I'd overdosed on Valium. I remember going to ophthalmologists, wondering why I can't see, because I'd forgotten to take my contact lenses out for 3 weeks at a time, and they were stuck behind my eye. But it was like, I'll take more of these pills, maybe it'll make me feel better. I still remember my ex-husband's parents coming to see me in hospital and asking me, why do you keep doing this? And I still remember saying to them, if I take these pills, I don't have to drink. That's why I do it, because if I take these pills, I don't have to drink. Anyway, this whole engagement thing happened with this guy, and I think I'd got into a point where I'd kind of, sort of, grown up and thought, this whole pretending thing is not going to work for me anymore. I can't. I'm tired of pretending. And if I marry this guy, how on earth am I going to pretend for the rest of my life that I actually want to be here? I don't know where I want to be. I don't know anything anymore. And I drank on that. I drank. It was one day of drinking. I relapsed on my belly button birthday. And 9 days later, I ended up in a treatment center up the road here. Come to think of it, I didn't actually, I just went there because at that stage I was tired. And I thought, I'm going to give somebody a chance to actually try and help me. I'm tired. I'd only drunk once in the however many years, so I didn't really have a problem with the alcohol anymore. I just needed to come off these tablets and everything would be okay. Anyway, I got there and I was introduced to the steps. I was detoxed off the medication, which were so ill. Alcohol didn't really, I'd put it to the back of my mind, and I started doing the steps. It was the first time that I was properly introduced to the steps. This was in 2011, I think, or 12, I can't remember, 11. And you see, these steps are actually, it's a thing that you have to do. Like, really? I've got to actually put work into this. And I did my step 1, my written step 1, and I still remember the one guy threw it back at me and told me to redo it. And I was like, bloody idiot. Who does he think he is? Spent 2 weeks doing this, and now you're going to make me redo it. And I did. And, I thank God every single day for that step 1. Even though I relapsed after that, that step 1 changed everything for me. I had evidence. I had it written down. I could see exactly what was wrong with me, where I'd come from. And so too, I did step 2, step 3. I did leave before my time was up. I run from feelings. I run from anything that makes me feel uncomfortable. I run from anything that makes me feel anything. And my step forward's coming up. I'd just done my life story, and I really could not face people telling me how crap I was, because I knew that already. I really did. I think if there was anybody hard enough on me, it was me. Beat myself with a stick all the time. But it's funny though, you beat yourself with a stick and then feel sorry for yourself and drink more. Anyway, I left there. The relationship didn't last. He buggered off because I got sober. I didn't know how to be anybody sober. And I drank again. That was my first real taste of recovery, and I've heard it since in the rooms. You know, once you've got a head full of AA and a belly full of beer, or whatever it is that's in your belly, the two just don't go well together. And I always, now I knew that I was an alcoholic, and I was still drinking. And the guilt and the shame that I felt over that, you know, and I didn't hide it. I mean, I'd go and sit in a pub and say, how's it, guys? I'm an alcoholic, and order myself a drink. And they, no, you're not an alcoholic, just have another drink. And the more people told me that, the more I believed them and the more I drank. I wanted to believe that I was okay. Things had really started progressing in my drinking. Each time that I've relapsed, so too has the chaotic, revolting part of my disease progressed as well. But that had lasted for a few months, and I came back into recovery, and I did what was expected of me. But, you know, looking back on that, and I did my 1 year share, but right from the beginning, all I wanted to do was to do my 1 year share. There was nothing in between. I didn't want to do the stuff in between. Going to a meeting was to go and sit with chummies and buddies at the meeting and chat and go and have coffee afterwards, or go and do this or go and do that. And, you know, people start gossip. It's such a massive, big thing in recovery. A lot of gossip had gone around, and a lot of things had happened with people in the fellowship, and some true, some not true, and it drove me away. And I'm not saying that it was as a direct result of that I chose to drink, but that's what drove me away, and that kept me away from AA for almost a year and a half, which was where I was now. During that time, I'd pretty much lost everything. How I'd managed to hold on to my job, I don't know. I was drinking every day. I was drinking wine in a coffee cup on the way to work in the morning so that I wouldn't shake by the time I got to work. I'd have a box of wine in the boot to drink on the way home in the afternoon because I had to. I had to. My finances had gone down the tube. I had pretty much lost everything, pretty much. I had a roof over my head. I'd been put under debt review. You know, there were days where I had no money, and I remember having to go into Spar and steal chicken breasts so that I could buy a box of wine. I don't know how I'm going to make amends to Spar. But you know, as long as, and even if it was a little bit, if I could just hold on to a little bit, that was my something that I had. I always had to have something outside of myself to put inside of me to make me feel better. And yeah, things got progressively worse, and I knew it. I was reaching out to people, I was begging people to help me. I didn't want to drink anymore, but it didn't work out that way. I carried on, and I ended up, the one night I remember even going to some dodgy pharmacy in Durban to try and get tablets, because if I take tablets, then I won't drink. Needless to say, before I got to the pharmacy, I was found in a heap in the gutter on Point Road, drunk, and driven back to Pinetown. Friends in the fellowship that are actually still very good friends of mine today picked me up. I still remember asking that police officer, what made you decide to pick me up? He said to me, because you don't look like you belong here. See, I still look okay. I don't belong there, so I'm just going to stay at home and drink. But yeah, it didn't work that way. You know, that that constant fear of being found out, of going to work, of having to excuse yourself in a meeting to go and vomit in the plant pot outside, to have to lie every second day because you can't get to work because you are so sick, to driving home and colliding with trucks and writing cars off, and police stations and all kinds of things. That I was never caught shoplifting, I don't know, because that became a big thing as well. Kelsey was involved in a car accident, my daughter, in December 2014. And I got a massive big shock. The car had been written off. There were 7 people in the car. Her best friend had broken her neck. She did survive. It was a massive big accident, and I knew in order for me to be anything, I needed to stop drinking. I needed to be there for my daughter. And I did stop drinking, and I'd made a conscious decision in that December. That was it. I couldn't do this anymore. That was it. I need to keep my car and my house and my daughter and my this and my that. I need to keep stuff. Probably about 6 weeks later, I got the call. Bearing in mind, during all of this time, my dad was around. My dad never recovered after that whole incident before. He was very, how can I say, I needed to always give him money or give him this or help him, or he was very dependent on me financially, even though I had no money. I got the call on the 28th of January I actually got a message from my dad to say he needed to see me, he wanted to talk to me about something. And I'd been avoiding my dad for months before that, the month before that, because I wasn't drinking and I didn't want to get into that negative space and everything. And I replied to his message telling him, I'll see you on the weekend, Dad, I'm busy now. 3 hours later, I got a call to tell me my dad had died. I drove up to Hillcrest, stopped there in Kloof, bought a bottle of old brown sherry, drank the sherry, got to Dad. You know, it becomes robotic. And I remember sitting there, the regret. That's one thing I've learned in recovery is say what you need to say, because you're going to regret it if you don't. Anyway, and that was the beginning of my, God willing, last relapse. In a month, I was finished. I was bleeding internally. My kidney was so messed up. I've only got one. Of all the alcoholics in the world to drink, one kidney. But I was invincible. Yes, the insanity. I'd written my car off. I didn't know how I was going to get another car because I was under debt review. I was terrified of anything, of anybody. I didn't have any friends. The friends that I did have were in recovery, and I couldn't face them because I didn't trust them because of all the nonsense that had gone on back then. And I was pretty much in the dark. I remember it was a Saturday. Any pill that I could get my hands on, I took. Anything that I could drink, I drank. I couldn't stand up without falling down. I had massive big lumps all over my head. My whole body was bruised. I remember lying there thinking, I'm such a failure, I can't even drink anymore. That's how much of a failure I've become. I can't even drink anymore. And yeah, that was the Saturday. On the Sunday, I was horribly, horribly ill. I got home. I was with somebody that's in the fellowship with us. Took me home, and so too did my desperate decision-making process start taking place. Either I live or I die. Either way, I can't do this anymore. I can't. You can take everything. The thing with recovery for me is I always try to hold on to stuff. Now I didn't want anything. I didn't want you could take everything away from me. You could even take the bed out from underneath me. I would have let you take it as long as I didn't have to feel this way anymore. I got to work on that Monday, and I remember going into the bathroom at work and going down on my knees and saying, God, please, just take away this feeling. I don't know where, I don't know what, I don't know how. I can't feel this anymore. I don't have a car. How am I going to get to work? You can take my job. You can take anything. I was so ready to give everything up. And it's strange. I'm not going to go into how it happened, but I was given. Not even 10 minutes later, my phone rang and I was given finance for a car. And on my way to fetching that car on the Thursday, I got a Facebook message from somebody. Hey, Gilly, how are you doing? Not so cool. It was one of the first times I actually became honest. I really wasn't all that cool. I wasn't drinking. And he said to me, well, if you want, you can speak to my girlfriend and maybe get to a meeting. And I thought, seriously, back to that load of crap. Literally, I really did think that. I don't know if I can do that. But something deep inside of me, something, said to me, just try it. Just try it. Anyway, through a whole sequence of events, I was supposed to go to Hillcrest. I ended up going to Musgrave, and I sat through the meeting. I didn't really want to be there. A girl shared. I didn't take anything out of her share. No offense to the person that was sharing. Not because she didn't share something interesting, because I wasn't ready to listen. I walked out of that meeting, and somebody that had actually been with me at the treatment center stopped me and said, "Hi, Jill." And I'm like, "Oh, hi." At that point, I had a box of wine in the boot of my car, and I thought, this hasn't worked. I'm actually just gonna drink to die. This is the end of it. And he stopped and he looked at me, and I'll never forget it. He looked at me, he had tears in his eyes, and he said to me, "Jill, you've done this before. Let God do this for you this time." They say get to meetings. That was why I had to get to that meeting to hear that. That's where my recovery began. Started getting to meetings again. I put aside everybody, everything. I found a sponsor. I was told to do my 90 meetings in 90 days. I did 82 meetings in 90 days. Just to share, my whole motive behind doing those 90 meetings was so that I could sit here and say I did 90 meetings in 90 days. That's what I wanted. But in doing those 90 meetings in 90 days, I started lying to people to work, to get to a lunchtime meeting, to people that, the whole... And I got myself into a mess, absolute mess. And I was at a crossroads thinking, I'm not letting God do this for me. I'm still running on my own will. I'm still doing this isn't working for me. I decided to change sponsors. And there was something in Eileen that she's so calm. It was something I've never been. I've never been calm. I've never been able to just be. I didn't know how to, because I was either being the person you wanted me to be or the other person. And so my next journey into recovery began. We started doing the steps together. I made God the center, the everything of my recovery. My steps were, it was the most difficult thing I've ever done, because I actually became honest. But what was quite amazing about it was doing my step 4, all the tears weren't so painful anymore. It was more of a release than pain. Thank you. I remember us sitting the one day as well talking about relationships in the first year of recovery. Sitting having coffee, and Eileen said to me, "Are you in an intimate relationship?" Me? No. Hell no am I in an intimate relationship. She said to me, "Yes, you are. Yes, you are. What about God?" And I was like, that is what intimacy is. That is what love is. That is what everything is. Little light bulb moment. So I made that the center of my recovery in the first year. I had an intimate relationship with my higher power, the God of my understanding. I call him God. I did my steps. I got to meetings. I did everything that was expected of me. Most of all, I became honest. I became willing. I put effort in. It doesn't come naturally for me to sit here and talk. I don't tell. I've never told people stuff for the fear that it would get held against me. I'd rather just not say anything at all. Recovery has not been easy. It's been an up and down struggle for me. No, it hasn't been a struggle. I lie. I've just been presented with so many things. I've been told so many, "Eileen, this has happened. It's God's doing for me what I can't do for myself." Jill, it doesn't always come as nice things, you know, and that cry, and I'm like, okay, all right, yes, whatever. And I've also figured out that God's will for me isn't always the good things. It's the bad things too. That's where that serenity prayer comes into play. You know, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I like to think that I've become a little bit wise, and that I've actually grown up. I'm a 40-year-old adult. Yeah, I've had to put effort in. I've been told I have to share at every meeting. I remember in that treatment center, I was told to sit in this very meeting and just say, "My name's Gillian, I'm an alcoholic, thanks for the meeting." Because I didn't want to share. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to open up. For me to sit in front of a group of people like this, I would have had to have done, I don't know what, to just pluck up the courage to sit here, let alone talk. Recovery has been awesome for me. I've put it ahead of everything else. As I sit here today, you can still take anything away from me as long as I've got this. I'll be okay. He's got my back. You know, through the difficult times I've had problems with work and retrenchments, and my sponsor would say to me, "Joy, you can't build faith on future events. Your faith is look back on everything that's happened. There's your faith, and you build on that." Has he ever let you down? And I can honestly say, no, he hasn't. The only thing standing between me and relapsing or drinking again is me. Nothing else. It's me. But the comfort that I take in knowing that if I put God first, if I put my recovery first, I keep doing what I'm doing today, every day, I'm taken care of. I'll be okay. That's all I ever wanted to be, was okay. Thank you.